Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user BeginningPizza2196. Am I the a-hole for walking out of my son's kindergarten play because my wife wouldn't shut up? Today, my 32 male son's 5 male kindergarten had a little play. It was a short story involving a bunch of bunnies, giraffes, and sheep. My son, Kevin, was one of the giraffes. I was looking forward to it all week, but I was also anxious because my wife, Claire, 31 female, tends to get very bad when we're in front of other people. She'll often become aggressive, short-tempered, and will be incredibly rude towards me. I think she does it performatively because she thinks it makes her look cool. Anyway, Claire and I arrived early to get front row seats in their small auditorium. First, as we waited, Claire began by putting her bag and other belongings on the 2 seats next to her. I had to get her to put them under the chair because other people might want to sit there. She accosted me because, "Of course I know that. I was going to move them when it got crowded." Then she began setting up a camera on a tripod on top of the seat, which would have obstructed the view of anyone else behind us. Luckily, one of the teachers there asked her nicely to take it down. Unfortunately, this put Claire in a foul mood, and I knew she would be taking it out on me eventually. The performance started and our son did a great job, but he had a little giraffe hat on with a cord to go under his chin, and he put the cord in his mouth during the play. Claire would simply not shut up about this. As all the parents took videos, she was constantly saying things like, "I told him not to chew on it," and "Kevin, take that cord out of your mouth." I could tell other parents were getting irritated with her because her voice was getting on their video of their children. I lightly suggested in a whisper, "Hey, other people are taking videos. I don't think Kevin can hear you anyway." Claire did not take this well. She began loudly ranting to herself. She would repeat things like, "God, I want him to shut the F up," and mock my voice with, "Kevin can't hear you." Over time, she gradually got louder and louder. Finally, when I was pretty sure Kevin's part in the play was done, I stood up and walked out. I waited in the car. Claire and Kevin came out about 20 minutes later. She opened the door and immediately began tearing into me about abandoning her and Kevin. When I responded that she was embarrassing me, she began sulking and ranting about how she's such an embarrassment to her family. I don't know what I could have done better. Should I have handled this differently? Will it be for this particular situation? No, I think you've done the right thing. You've removed yourself away from the aggressor, which unfortunately is your wife. And I gotta say, based on the description that you gave us of your interactions, it doesn't sound like she likes you so much. Honestly, her mocking your voice and talking to herself about how she just wished you would shut the F up, that would have been enough for me to confront her and sit her down and have a serious conversation. Now, if it gets worse than that, and I can assume it does, then you're in an abusive relationship in my opinion, and that's not good for Kevin or for yourself, of course. So if I was in your shoes, I would really think about this and think about what the next step should be and if I should stay in this thing or not. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's check out the community comments to see what they had to say. WiseDate5357 says, "Kevin is 5. He understands words. On the day he got up to act in public, a huge achievement for a 5-year-old, he spent a car ride back with his parents. You know what he should have been expecting to hear? All the way back home? You make a great giraffe, Kevin. You were so brave and you got all your lines right. We are so proud of you." You know what he heard instead, all the way back? "Your father thinks I'm an embarrassment. You were chewing your hat." That is unacceptable, and the fact you're staying with this woman who would not only treat you this way, clearly at the very least verbally abusive, when you'd been looking forward to this all week, but that would ruin something so big for your son, that is deeply wrong. I would never call someone in an abusive relationship an a-hole, but please get out of there, not the a-hole for walking out. And Opie responds, "I realized this and it made me really sad. I put Kevin to bed. I praised him on his giraffe performance and told him that everyone has habits they can't control when talking about biting his hat cord. I'm not sure he understood, but I also told him that mommy is very sick and sometimes she can't control herself. But that's different because it hurts other people. It was a hard conversation to have with him, but I did the best I could. Pink Chicken Legs says, why are you remaining married to this absolute nightmare of a wife? The entitlement is only overshadowed by her abusive behavior. Don't stay for your kid. That jacks kids up because they're more intuitive than we give them credit for. Not the a-hole, but your wife is something else. Fresh Mistake 8678 says, wife is gonna ruin every moment of the kid's life and take OP down with her. His wife likes attention on her, and imagine graduation and wedding, oof. And Voodoo Pulse says, she's an a-hole, but you walked out on your little boy. When he comes out to do his bow and his dad's no longer there, how does that make him feel? And Opie responds, I understand this, but I know Claire. She wasn't going to stop ranting loudly until I either left or the play ended. She was ruining it for everyone. Okay, so the community overall agrees that OP is not the a-hole and that he should rethink this relationship because it sounds or it's clear that he is in an abusive relationship. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I want to preface this update with an expression of gratitude to everyone who gave me advice. I received direct messages from a startling number of men who have dated or married a woman with similar issues as Claire. One of these messages led to a conversation, and something the commenter said really resonated with me. He told me that in his case, his wife doesn't really understand the concept of guilt. He said that she doesn't understand phrases like, you made me feel sad when you said X, or the way you treated me hurt my feelings. He eventually came to an epiphany that while trying to make her understand guilt and feelings was a waste of time, she actually had a good grasp on shame and was able to leverage that against her. My next run-in with Claire happened when we went out to dinner 2 weeks after Kevin's play. We went to the Cheesecake Factory. The problem that night began when I ordered an appetizer first, which caused Claire to immediately call me an effing selfish idiot. I was apparently supposed to go Kevin's order, Claire's order, appetizer, my order. Now, before, I would usually just fix my mistake to disarm Claire. But this time, I calmly responded, you're embarrassing yourself and making everyone uncomfortable. Claire began showing her typical pre-tantrum signs, face going red, shaking, and while she let me finish ordering, after the waitress walked away, she whisper-shouted about how terrible of a human being I was. I responded in a neutral but audible voice. The people at the tables around us are starting to stare. You look unhinged. Do we need to take our order to go, or are you going to behave? As predicted, Claire decided to double down and cause a scene. I flagged the waitress down and said that we would be taking our order to go. Now, at that point, Claire refused to move from the booth, so I simply gathered Kevin and then walked out on her, picking our food up from the takeout counter. Long story short, Kevin and I ate in the car overlooking a canyon, watched some movies and went home. Claire came home later, announced she was leaving because I abandoned her, and I eagerly helped her pack. Claire is staying at her parents' house, where Kevin has visited her a few times. We only communicate through texts now. I refuse to answer her calls, but she has admitted that being with me stresses her out so much that she acts like she wouldn't normally. I know, but I'll take it. We're going to get divorced and co-parent Kevin. I wish Claire well, but the woman is a disaster through and through. Thanks again, everyone. Well, OP, I'm gonna call this a positive update. Someone was able to give you the key to unlocking Claire, let's say, and you were able to use it to the point that you've now removed yourself from this toxic relationship, and it's gonna be better for Kevin as well. So here's wishing you both the best in the future. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user OwnOrchid4301. Am I the a-hole for teaching my daughter ASL? I, 33 female, got into an argument with my mom, 58 female, last week. For context, my father, 58 male, is completely deaf. He was born deaf and he communicates pretty much only through ASL. My 3 siblings and I learned ASL at a very young age in order to be able to communicate with him, and now we are all fluent in it. My mom is also fluent. My mom has never once communicated any concerns with us learning ASL until last week. Me and my husband, Mark, 35 male, have a wonderful daughter, Ava, 5 female. We are also 6 months pregnant with a baby boy. Ever since Ava had been able to confidently speak and form sentences, me and Mark have been teaching her a couple of ASL signs. We live about 20 minutes from my parents and see them often, so we figured it would be great if Ava could communicate with my dad. Ava is doing great with learning signs and we are so proud of her. The problem with my mom arose last week. Me, Mark, and Ava went to my parents' house one afternoon to have dinner there. We were all in the living room and Ava was showing my dad the new signs she had learned. He was so happy and Ava was having a great time. I looked over at my mom and she looked upset. I asked if something was wrong and she said that she couldn't believe I was trying to confuse Ava. I didn't understand what she meant. I figured she was saying that one of the signs Ava did was incorrect. However, when I asked if that was the problem, she frowned even more. She started saying that her biggest regret was teaching me and my siblings ASL when we were young because it messed up our heads. I was so confused and asked her to explain. She then reminded me of the time when I was about 9 or 10 and at school I assumed that everyone knew ASL. So I started signing and I refused to speak for the rest of the day and they had to call her. Then she told me that very similar things happened with my siblings too. She asked if that was what I wanted for Ava, and I tried to explain that when teaching ASL, just like other spoken languages, it is a good thing to start early. She freaked out and said that I was just trying to delay Ava's English skills. Again, I tried to explain that Ava's speech is great and learning ASL isn't harming her. All of a sudden, my mom was crying and yelling and walking around the room. She was saying that I am not a good mother to Ava, and if I tried to harm my kid this way too, she'd call CPS. By this point, Ava was crying and Mark was holding her, trying to calm her down and also defend me from my mom. My mom rushed upstairs while I told my dad what happened, and he was furious with my mom. He went upstairs too and we left. Me and Mark talked about what happened and he assured me that we are doing the right thing with Ava. I was still very shaken, but I knew he was right. My mom has left me dozens of texts telling me that I shouldn't teach Ava or my son any ASL if I want to be a good mom, but I haven't responded. So, am I the a-hole? OP, you are very much not the a-hole. You are actually doing right by Ava, and this is the best age to learn any language. My kids, for example, I talk to them only in Spanish, well, Chilean Spanish, my wife only in German, and since my wife and I speak in English to each other, my kids know all 3 languages. Not 100%, but pretty good. And they are doing just fine developmentally. So again, no OP, in my opinion, you and Mark are doing the right thing. Also, this way Ava can communicate with her granddad, which is a good thing. My only question would be, is this like a normal thing for your mom to have this kind of a reaction or an outburst? Because if it is, then your mom's an a-hole. And if it isn't, well then there's something that's going on in the background that I would have checked. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Deleted says, not the a-hole. ASL has been proven to be a very good thing to teach kids and helps make the world more accessible. Her saying that you aren't a good mom for teaching your kids something super important because of one non-serious event that happened with you and your siblings is wild. Not the a-hole. Keep teaching your kids sign language. It comes in handy and definitely does not hurt your kid. Playful Sprinkles 59 says, not the a-hole, but I think you know that. Your mom is being very weird. Does she actually think it was wrong to teach her children, you and your siblings, ASL so that you could communicate with your father? The story from school is just children being children. It makes no sense to not teach your kids. And the CPS comment is a deal breaker. I would definitely sit down with both parents and find out what on earth is going on. You and your husband are doing a great job with your children. And Crocodile Zebra Milk says, not the a-hole. Does your mother not realize that she's technically the reason why you and your siblings assumed everyone knew ASL? When I was born, I was assumed to never be able to speak, so my family learned and taught me ASL, and we kept up the lessons even after I began speaking. I'm selective mute. They always told me that not everyone speaks it and that nobody at my school would know ASL because it isn't taught in schools. They drilled this into my head early, so I knew when to use my phone or laptop to speak in case I couldn't use my vocal cords. Your mother is crossing several lines by threatening you with CPS for teaching your child another language, because many children are bi or even trilingual and it's easier to learn while they're still young than it is when they're older. Alright, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole and that her mom is acting incredibly strange and absolutely in the wrong for threatening to call CPS. So now, let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. Hi, it's been 9 months since my post and I wanted to give you all an update. Firstly, I wanted to say that I gave birth to a healthy and amazing little boy in May. We'll call him Cam. Mark, Ava, and Cam are all doing great. Secondly, thank you so much to everyone who commented advice. I appreciate you so much. After the initial fight with my mom, we didn't talk to her for a little while. Especially with my pregnancy, Mark wanted me to take it easy. I saw my dad a lot. He came to our house often to see the kids. I asked him if mom had been acting weird other than that one time, but he said no. Every June, my family has a big barbecue at my parents' house. My parents have a really big backyard, so the whole family was able to go. Ava was having a great time playing with her cousins, and Mark was proudly showing my siblings our baby. My mom was in the house, so I went in to ask her some things commenters suggested. After talking for a minute, I asked if she was experiencing menopause. She got quiet and said yes. I was relieved, since the other option people were suggesting was dementia. I told her that I was there for her and I could support her however she needed, but she had to promise to leave my kids out of it. She agreed and we hugged and went back outside. I figured that was the end of it. That was until July, when my dad showed up at my house randomly. I asked what was happening. He said my mom was cheating on him. I was shocked. He said he had gone to their house and he saw my mom kiss a man in the kitchen he did not know, and when she turned around and saw him, he left. I wanted to talk to mom, so he stayed with Mark and the kids and I went to see her. When I got there, she was crying. I asked her to explain and she told me that it wasn't supposed to happen this way. Eventually, she told me the whole story. When she had my oldest brother, 37 male, she wasn't ready to start a family since her and dad weren't married yet. They had been dating for 5 years. Then she had me and the rest of my siblings, 5 kids total. But she never wanted to start a family with dad. She stopped loving him when they were 40 and she realized her life was nothing like she had dreamed because she never wanted to marry a deaf man or have his kids. She said she met her secret boyfriend, Dan, when she was 45 and they had been meeting ever since. By this point, I was sobbing and she was yelling. I left and blocked her. I guess she had been growing resentful to him for years and the ASL fight was a random breaking point. Long story short, I went back to my house, told Mark and my dad everything, called my siblings and told them, and told my dad he could stay with us for as long as he wanted. My parents' divorce was finalized a few weeks ago and my dad lives with us in our in-law suite. Probably not the update you were expecting, but thank you for all the support and advice. Aw man, OP, that sucks. It turns out that your mom was going through something and she's an a-hole. I've got no words for her, OP, but you and Mark are doing right by your dad and that is awesome. So on that note, here's wishing you and your family, except for your mom of course and Dan, the best in the future, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now, let's finish this video with a quick mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user SureVictory7172. Special Duty Loophole. This happened while I was in the army stationed in South Korea April 95 to April 96. Senior enlisted were throwing a going away party for the outgoing first sergeant. Top was cool and all, but I was a PFC with no interest in going until we were informed if you didn't buy a ticket, you were shanghaied into working special duty for the event. Tickets were based on your rank. E4 and below were $2. Q. Malicious compliance. Bought a ticket just to get out of working special duty for this BS. Hey you detail. Got dismissed from formation, changed into civvies, made an appearance, ate some buffet food and dipped out. Best $2 I ever spent to get out of detail. Well, it sucks that they made you buy a ticket, but at least you got some food out of it and got a day off. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.